Got Ruth Rawlins, spokeswoman for CBR UK, anti-abortion organisation. Good morning, Ruth. Thank you very much indeed for being on the conversation this morning. You okay? We've also got... Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Good. Oh, I was worried for a minute. And Kate in London. Hello, Kate.
Hello.
And Vic in Bath. Morning, Vic.
Morning.
That's what we like to hear.
My dog's in Bath.
That's all good. So, Kate,
yes.
Retired midwife. What was your... I mean, we've had some extraordinary calls so far. And thank you again for those women who've been getting in touch. When you saw this news or heard this news there on Friday, what did you think, Kate?
I felt a sort of combination of real sadness and anger, and also it reminded me of the true story of abortion, really, and of how desperate people can be. I'm not talking about early abortions. I think abortion is absolutely one of our fundamental human rights as women in order to have control over our own reproduction. I think it's vital for us, for all our other freedoms. But as a midwife, obviously, I delivered lots and lots of healthy, happy babies to happy parents, which is wonderful. But I also delivered late terminations because obviously after a certain period, a baby, an abortion has to be delivered. And I looked after some very, very tragic girls in very tragic and difficult, traumatic situations who had to make a choice, sometimes as young as 12 or 13, because of horrendous situations, which I'm not going to obviously discuss. And my heart went out to those girls too, because I understood that they didn't have a choice other than to move away from this pregnancy that was not something that they could manage, either emotionally or psychologically. And I would always hold to the fact that person has an absolute right to decide what to do with their own body, and that's from my perspective of having seen a lot of things. And I think people create a lot of horror stories, but I only ever saw people being dealt with care and compassion, and I never saw any of those horror stories that people talk about. And I worked in a big London hospital, so I have. I'm distressed really to hear about what's happened in America, and I really feel for the women there who are victims of rape and incest, and all the people that come into the category of those who have late terminations.
Ruth, yours will be, I'll be back with you, Kate, yours will be a very different reaction, obviously, but what about Kate's last point about their women who are the victims of rape and incest? I know you were clearly, you think this is a good thing, this ruling, but just pick up Kate's point, Ruth, and welcome again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, these are horrific things for any woman to go through, rape and incest. And, we'd want to show compassion to all of these women like yourself. And however, these are only less than 1% of all abortions. And it seems that the abortion lobby is hiding behind these particular cases. I would like to ask if not for these rape cases, would you be happy if we put the rape and incest aside? I'm not saying that's my position, but would you be happy for us for the ruling that abortions are now not accessible for all the other cases?
No, I wouldn't, because I think that it's obviously in that small percent, and I'm not a member of an abortion lobby, can I say that as well? I'm just an individual woman sitting in my individual home. I'm not a member of a lobby, and I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm merely stating that on the basis of my experience, that women who have an abortion have it for a very good reason. And it's not up to me to... I know about some of those reasons because of my work, but I think fundamentally, we have the right to control what happens with our own bodies. That is our first fundamental human right. And if you take that right away from us, the rest of our rights will go with it. We've only had the suffrage, the right to vote in this country, for 100 years. Let's not start undermining other rights I just think it's the thin end of the wedge, to be honest. It worries me.
Thanks for making that point, Kate, about, the most important human rights. And, we would argue that the most important human right is the right to life. Without the right to life, there's no...
What about the right to the living?
So to make my point, the scientific facts are that human life begins at that point of fertilization. At that point, you have a whole and unique, and sorry, going to make my point. If I can make my point, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, at that point, you have a whole unique and living human being that has everything it needs to grow. It's just time, and that's what we believe, is that every human being deserves that right to life. It doesn't matter. We don't say that a 2-year-old is somehow less worthy of the right to life than a 16-year-old, simply because it's younger, smaller, more dependent upon its mother for survival. Yet we're doing that for children in the womb. And the only difference between, a child in the womb and a born baby is its size. It's smaller. Its level of dependency. It's, it may be more dependent on its mother inside the womb than outside the womb. Its environment, it's in a different environment. And its degree of development, it's less development.
Okay, Kate, come back, and then Kate, come back. Then I want to bring in Vic and Marsha.
I'm not. My argument isn't about about when somebody becomes a viable human being. I mean, I actually don't even know that.
Quite important to work out if we're talking about killing a human being.
Excuse me. No, my argument is that while a child exists within the body of the woman, it is that woman's life, it is that woman's right that is the principal right. And the minute you start messing about, the right to decision making, to autonomy,
over that child's life, the right to take the life of that child.
Just, as I said at the beginning, what part of the debate, of course, is obviously life is one thing, viability is another thing, personhood is another thing altogether. I just want to put that sort of philosophical and indeed medical and scientific categorization in there. Vic and Marsha with us as well. Vic, what do you think about this decision?
I think it's disastrous for the rights of women all over the world, to be honest. I think it's a legacy of a misogynistic right-wing president. Unfortunately, that legacy is now going to, or could last for 30 years, because the judges sitting on the Supreme Court don't tend to retire until death, or they're very old and grey, as far as I understand it. And I think somebody mentioned it being the thin end of the wedge. I think it is. I think that decisions from this court are going to affect people in the US and around the world for years to come, and it's now a very biased, reactionary court. And I think, sadly, now that states get to choose whether or not women have the right to an abortion, it will be the poorest, and tends to be the poorest and most backward-looking states. So states like Mississippi, which means that women in poverty will be the women that are most affected by this decision. And I think, obviously, from my point of view, personally, I think it's everybody's right to choose. So the lady who was speaking earlier, not my right to tell her to have an abortion, not my right to tell her what views she should hold on this issue, in the same way that it's not her right to restrict my freedom of choice. And I think once we start restricting freedom of choice for 50% of the population, it begins to feel a very dangerous thing.
Welcome, Marsha. And I think that I read you're a US citizen living in the UK, so I'm fascinated to know your perspective, Marsha.
Yeah, pretty shocking about the decision. And clearly, I'm just amazed it's happened in my lifetime. And I guess what I'm worried about as well, so I'm pro-choice, and I guess what I'm worried about is that this may also start to creep into other things, such as access to Plan B, which is the morning after pill, and also insurance companies' provision of basically anything sexual health related to women. So a bit worried about that. And I would say it affects my decision about where I'm going to live. And but it's a fight that's not over. And if you are an overseas U.S. citizen, if you go to votefromabroad.org, you can register to get your primary ballot, and the primaries are coming up where you select your party's candidates who can represent you on these issues.
So much. What do you think about Ruth, Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court judge, making vibrations that he would like to look again at other constitutional rights? He'd like to actually look at same-sex marriage and the access to contraception. Do you support him on this and those conservative moves? Do you think that there's validity in what he says, Ruth?
I can only comment on the, in terms when we're talking about the child and the right to life of a child.
What about access to okay, sorry, I'll tell you what about access to contraception? He wants to make that more difficult. Do you support that?
And so the only thing I'd say on that is that there's a lot of ignorance surrounding the way some of these contraceptive methods work, because potentially some of them can also work abortifaciently. So that means that, once the embryo is already, life has already begun, and it travels up the fallopian tube and attaches to the lining of the womb, then some of these contraceptive methods, they thin the lining of the womb so that their embryo, which is that life in its early stage, comes away and essentially dies and is expelled from the body. So that's not well known about. So that definitely needs to be more known about. There's lots of people that actually are pro-life and are not aware of these facts, that some of these so-called contraception methods can, end the life of an already
can I just
formed embryo.
Of course you can.
Please, Nicky, it's Kate. What you're talking about, you see, this is what I mean by the thin end of the wedge. You're talking about a coil. Lots of women who have already had children, generally those are women who opt to have a contraceptive coil. Given that the menstrual cycle is 28 days long, it means that it is conceivable that you could have an implanted egg and that you're losing that at 28 days when you menstruate. But if you're then saying that is a viable, seriously, that you're talking about a little mass of cells at 2 weeks. And I think this is why people are so worried about this change in legislation in America, because it means that suddenly all these other issues that have been contentious and that have been tokens in the culture wars that are particularly being fought in America get thrown into it. So gay marriage, contraception, and all these things are ways of suppressing people and of suppressing their freedoms. And it's wrong that we're beginning to step back on these things.
If I could come back on that, please, Nicky, that would be wonderful. I think there's a lot of fear-mongering going on. This is a wonderful thing that, women are being protected now and will be offered better solutions. Being offered a solution to real problems, real challenging situations that women may be in when they're pregnant. Now they can be offered real solutions like support and hope. The whole abortion debate is hopeless. It's saying that women are not strong enough to have babies. It's saying that, it's giving a solution to a challenging situation as, we can kill your baby for you and make the problem go away. But the reality is that the problem doesn't go away, but now the woman is heaped on with a whole load of other problems. And trauma and bereavement, and we speak to these women all the time, and people can search out post-abortion support for everyone, which is PACE, where these are supporting women who have been through abortion.
Kate, I'll give you the last word. I'm just looking at the clock, Ruth. I hope you feel that you've had a fair say. Kate, years of experience as a midwife. A final thought on this from you.
I was a young woman when we got the right to abortion in this country. Before that, the women had still had abortions. Women have been having abortions for thousands of years. What will happen is not that these women will get offered hope and support and help. They'll end up in a backstreet abortionist, and women will start to die of abortion. That's really what will happen.
Thanks all so much. If you